here at the conference, women are, and it is women in representation theory. And as Milan pointed out, I think it's really, really exciting that we have now all these different kinds of representation theory at the same conference, because usually we go at separate conferences. So I think it's going to be very exciting and nice. And our very first speaker is Velichka Milosheva, and the title is Canonical Weierstrass Representation of Minimal Lorentz surfaces in pseudo-Euclidean pore space with neutral metric. Please explain this now.
Thank you, Gordana. Before starting with my talk, I would like to welcome you on behalf of the Managing Board of the International Center for Mathematical Sciences. Please excuse Professor Julian Rybalski, who is the director of the International Center. He has another business meeting in the morning, so he could not come here, but he will welcome you in the afternoon. So on behalf of his name, I would like to welcome you in the Institute on this nice occasion, this conference celebrating the women in representation theory. And would like to say that this is a kind of a continuation of another initiative which we started 6 years ago here in the International Center for Mathematical Sciences. This initiative was called Women in Mathematics in Southeastern Europe. And now we develop in the whole world women in mathematics, but here we are focusing on representation theory. But the aim of all these conferences, including this one, is to promote the role of female mathematicians, to exchange new ideas, to present new results, and to start new collaborations. So I hope this conference will be fruitful to all of you for presenting your ideas, and to all guests for starting collaborations in the field of representation theory. And also I would like to say that this conference is supported by the Simons Foundation and the Ministry of Education and Science in Bulgaria, and the scientific program with abbreviation PICOM. So if you have seen some PICOM abbreviation, this means this is the Bulgarian abbreviation. This means a national program enhancing the research capacity in the field of mathematics. So welcome to Sofia, welcome to the conference, and enjoy your stay here, enjoy the conference, and good luck to everybody. And now I will talk about canonical Weierstrass representation of minimal Lorentz surfaces. Actually, my talk will not be so close to the theory of representation theory in the sense of representation theory of algebra or cluster algebras or related combinatorics. All of you work in this field. But I'm working in the field of differential geometry, so a little bit away from the main topic. But anyway, I'm so glad to be here to present my results and my ideas, and would like to thank Milen and Diline, the main organizers of this event, for inviting me to give the opening talk at the conference. So I will speak about Weierstrass representation, especially canonical Weierstrass representation, of one special class, an important class of surfaces in Euclidean geometry. These are the minimal surfaces. Especially I will speak about minimal surfaces in pseudo-Euclidean pore space with neutral metric. This is not the correct one. Okay, so I will start with a little trip back in the past. And we will mention that actually the study of minimal surfaces goes back to 18th century. This is a main topic in the classical differential geometry of the 18th century, and it started and was initiated by Lagrange, who in 1762 proved this equation which you see on the screen. This is the minimal surface equation. And actually the idea is that if a surface is parameterized as a graphic, this is not working, but you see here as a graphic, then it satisfies, the function g satisfies this equation, which is nowadays known as the Lagrange equation. And actually, the first non-trivial examples which were known were the catenoid found by Euler in 1744 and the helicoid found by Menier in 1776. So here you see the catenoid and the helicoid. All of you know that the catenoid is the only minimal rotational surface, so surface of revolution, and the helicoid is the only minimal surface built up of straight lines. And what is interesting for these two surfaces is that they are related through the Bonnet transformation, which means that they can be obtained from each other by an isometric transformation. Actually, Meunier first made a link between curvature and the minimal surfaces, proving that the Lagrange equation implies that the mean curvature is zero everywhere on a minimal surface. And this is the most popular definition of minimal surfaces. But minimal surfaces can be defined as surfaces with zero mean curvature, the most popular definition, but also they can be characterized as surfaces of minimal surface area for given boundary conditions. Also, they can be characterized as critical points of the area functional and as a graphic of the solution of the Lagrange differential equation. And actually, this variational definition that the minimal surface is a critical point of the area functional makes the minimal surfaces the two-dimensional analog of the geodesics, because the geodesics are defined as critical points of the length functional. So the Weierstrass representation formula from 1866 describes the minimal surfaces in terms of two homomorphic functions. Here you see that the surface is parameterized in terms of the function set. Complex function. By this integral, you see the three coordinate functions. I'm speaking about surfaces in three-dimensional Euclidean space, R3. So this is the Weierstrass representation formula. And throughout the 19th century, great mathematicians such as Gauss and Weierstrass devoted much of their studies to these surfaces. And there are a lot of results on minimal surfaces. And still, the minimal surfaces are very interesting from different points of view. In the last years, great attention is paid to surfaces in pseudo-Euclidean spaces, since pseudo-Euclidean geometry has many important applications in physics. And here I would like to cite the words of Banqian Chen in his book Pseudo-Riemannian Geometry, Delta Invariants and Applications, where Banqian Chen says that space-times are the arenas in which all physical events take place. The classification results from minimal Lorentz surfaces in pseudo-Euclidean space, EMS, can be actually one of the classification results of minimal Lorentz surfaces is this theorem of Banqian Chen from 2011. Which states that a Lorentz surface in arbitrary pseudo-Euclidean space EMS, M is the dimension, S is the index of the space, is minimal if and only if locally the surface is parameterized by this equation, which means it is a sum of two null curves. Beta and theta are two null curves satisfying this condition. So our aim is to characterize the minimal Lorentz surfaces in terms of a pair of smooth functions satisfying a system of two natural partial differential equations. And this aim is motivated by similar results which are obtained for minimal surfaces in the four-dimensional Euclidean space, E4, and space-wide or time-wide surfaces with zero mean curvature in the Minkowski four space E41. I will speak about surfaces in E42, which is the pseudo-Euclidean four-dimensional space with neutral metric. So our approach to the study of this class of surfaces is based on introducing a special geometric parameters which we call canonical parameters. First, I will recall some results about minimal surfaces in the Euclidean space and the Minkowski four space. Here you see the Wingen inequality, which gives a relation. This is an equality for the Gauss curvature K, the normal curvature kappa, and the mean curvature vector field H. And this inequality calls for an arbitrary surface in the four-dimensional Euclidean space. In the case we have equality is in this inequality, the surface is called Wingen ideal surface. And if we put the condition the surface to be minimal, which means H is equal to 0, then we can write an equality which follows from the Wingen equality and states that the Gauss curvature K and the curvature of the normal connection kappa of any minimal surface in E4 satisfy this inequality. K squared minus kappa squared is greater or equal to 0. So this inequality divides the class of minimal surfaces in four-dimensional space into two subclasses. The class of minimal Wingen ideal surfaces, which are characterized by the equality case, and the class of minimal surfaces of general type, for which K squared minus kappa squared is greater than 0. The Wingen ideal surfaces are also characterized by the condition that the ellipse of normal curvature is a circle. So I will recall the notion of ellipse of normal curvature. At a given point of the surface, this is an ellipse in the normal space described by this formula. This is sigma is the second fundamental tensor of the surface. So when x belongs to the tangent space of the surface, goes around a unit circle, sigma of x spans this space, which is called ellipse of subspace of the normal space, which is called ellipse of normal curvature. And if we are given an orthonormal base of the tangent space xy, then for any v tangent vector in the tangent space, we have this equality for the second fundamental form sigma. Sigma VV is represented in this way, which means that this is when V goes around the unit circle, sigma VV goes twice around an ellipse with conjugate directions. This vector sigma of xx minus sigma of yy over 2 sigma of xy. So this is the ellipse of normal curvature. On the other hand, the surfaces whose ellipse of normal curvature is a circle are also known as superconformal surfaces. So the class of minimal Wingen ideal surfaces is actually the class of minimal superconformal surfaces using this characterization. And according to a result of Eisenhardt, the minimal superconformal surfaces are locally equivalent to the class of homomorphic curves in C2. C2 considered as C4. So this is not the interesting class of minimal surfaces, but the non-superconformal class is the interesting one. And this is a result of Tribuzzi and Guadalupe from 1985. Which states that the Gauss curvature K and the curvature of the normal connection of any minimal So the Gauss curvature K and the curvature of the normal connection kappa of any minimal non-superconformal surface parameterized by spatial isothermal parameters satisfy this system of partial differential equations, where delta is the flux operator. And conversely, any solution K kappa to this system determines a unique after rigid motion, minimal non-superconformal surfaces, surface with Gauss curvature K and normal curvature kappa. Similar result hold for surfaces with zero mean curvature in the Minkowski-4 space. The space-wide surfaces with zero mean curvature are described in this theorem by Arias and Palmer. And again, we have a system of partial differential equations for the two main invariants of the surface, the Gauss curvature and the normal curvature. Here we have slightly different system, but the idea is the same, that any solution to this system of PDEs determines unique actual motion space-wide surface with zero curvature. And the Gauss curvature is K, the normal curvature is kappa. Together with Georgi Ganchev, we studied surfaces in E for one, which are time-wide, which means in the tangent space we have a Lorentzian metric. And for time-wide surfaces with zero mean curvature, we proved a similar result, which states again that this class of surfaces are characterized by the following system of partial differential equations for the two main invariants. Here the difference is that instead of the standard Laplacian delta, we use the hyperbolic Laplace operator here, delta H minus. This is the hyperbolic Laplace operator. And here we again use spatial so-called canonical parameters on the surface to obtain this system of PDEs, which is the background system of time-wide surfaces with zero mean curvature in the Minkowski-4 space. Just I would like to remark that both for time-wide surfaces and for space-wide surfaces, we have a sign class here, which means that we don't have a class analogous to the class of superconformal surfaces in the Minkowski-4 space. Of course, we exclude the case in which both K and kappa are equal to zero, because in this case, if both invariants are equal to zero, the surface lies in a two-dimensional plane. And now we go further, we reach the space E for 2. This is the four-dimensional pseudo-Euclidean space with neutral metric. This is a result of Sasaki, Makoto Sasaki, for space-wide surfaces with zero mean curvature. They are characterized by a similar system of partial differential equations, which you see on the screen. And here we have the inequality similar to the Wingen-Ideal inequality for surfaces in E4. K squared minus kappa squared is greater or equal to zero. But this is only for the space-wide case, space-wide surfaces with zero mean curvature. And the equality case characterizes points of the surface at which the ellipse of normal curvature is again a circle. So this is the analog of superconformal minimal surfaces in E4. We have such an analog here for space-wide surface. And now let's go to the Lorentzian case, which actually was included in the title of my talk. Minimal Lorentz surfaces, which means we use a Lorentzian metric in the tangent space. For minimal Lorentz surfaces in E42, we have the following three basic classes. Surfaces characterized by this inequality, positive case. Surfaces characterized by the equality case, and surfaces characterized by inequality but the negative case. This third class exists only in the pseudo-Euclidean space E42 and only for minimal Lorentz surfaces, time-wide surfaces. The class of minimal Lorentz surfaces satisfying the equality, the second class, is the analog of minimal superconformal surfaces which exist in the Euclidean space. But here, instead of an ellipse of normal curvature, we have a similar figure, but it is a hyperbola in the normal curvature. It is introduced by Bayard-Patti and Sanchez-Pringles. And the minimal Lorentz superconformal surfaces are characterized by rectangular hyperbola in the normal space, which means the semi-axes are equal. This is the geometric interpretation. So we focus our attention on the general case in which we have either K squared minus kappa squared positive or negative. Of course, we study the local theory, which means locally in subdomain, we have only positive or negative case. This is the first class of such surfaces for which the first normal space is one-dimensional, and this is in some sense the trivial case. What is the first normal space of a surface? The first normal space is the subspace defined by this formula. This spans all vector sigma of x, y, when x and y runs the tangent space. So if the first normal space is one-dimensional, then the minimal surfaces in this class are either a degenerate hyperplane, a flat umbilical surface, a quasi-umbilical surface, or lies in a non-degenerate hyperplane. This is a result with my PhD student Yana Alexieva published in Journal of Geometry and Physics. And now the general case, minimal Lorentz surfaces for which the first normal space is two-dimensional. For this class of surfaces, we introduce special parameters and we introduce special geometrically determined moving frame field x, y, n1, n2. With respect to this geometric frame field, we have the following Frenet derivative formulas given on the screen. Here, x and y are special tangent directions, which we call canonical tangent directions. They are collinear with the two white directions in the tangent space of the surface. N1 and N2 are also special frame in the normal space. N1 and N2 are collinear again with the two white directions in the normal space. And the parameters are chosen in a special way. That's why we call them canonical parameters of the surface. I'm not going into details because I want to reach the Weierstrass representation formula. Yeah.
This condition, the first one, does it mean that the second fundamental form is surjective to the normal space? Or am I reading it?
You mean the first normal space is two-dimensional?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So using this special parameterization, in terms of these canonical parameters, we prove the following theorem, which is actually the fundamental existence and uniqueness theorem for the class of minimal surfaces, minimal Lorentzian surfaces in E42. And the theorem states that if we are given two smooth functions, mu and u, they have some geometric interpretation. I'm not going to discuss now. If we are given two functions, smooth functions, defined in some domain, which satisfy these two equations, differential equations, and these conditions are on the surface to be two-dimensional. And if we are given an orthonormal frame x1, y1, n1, n2, x0, sorry, x nu, y nu, n1 nu, n2 nu, in the normal, is a normal frame with the initial point p nu in space, satisfying these equalities. Then there exists a subdomain and a unique minimal Lorentz surface of general type, which passes through the initial point p nu. And these two functions, mu and u, are geometric functions of the surface. And moreover, this initial frame field is the geometric frame field of the point P0. This sign here at epsilon, which appears in the equations, is equal to 1 if the first normal vector n1 is spacewise, and the sign epsilon is equal to -1 if n1 is respectively time-wide. So this is the fundamental existence and uniqueness theorem for minimal Lorentz surfaces in E42. And the meaning of this theorem actually is that any minimal Lorentz surface of general type is determined up to a rigid motion by two invariant functions mu and nu, satisfying the above system of partial differential equations. We call this system natural system of PDEs. for this class of surfaces. And actually, these two functions, mu and nu, are expressed in terms of the Gauss curvature and the normal curvature by these equalities. Here, both Gauss curvature and kappa are expressed in terms of the special canonical isothermal coordinates. So we can rewrite the fundamental theorem in the following form.
What was the epsilon in the previous slide?
The epsilon again gives the sign of the generated first normal vector in the normal space. Epsilon is equal to plus or minus 1. There are two cases of the n one. So this is actually the result. Again, with Yana Alexeyeva, which is similar to all systems we have seen before for the Euclidean force space, the Minkowski force space, space-wide or time-wide, and this is the case of Lorentzian minimal surfaces. This is actually the main system of PDF describing this class of surfaces. Shall I wait for this Zoom?
Maybe just click X.
By exit, I will exit from the full screen.
Wow.
If we do this, we no. Okay. Okay. And now we reach the Weierstrass representation, which is actually the aim of my talk, to present the Weierstrass representation formula for Lorentz minimal surfaces in pseudo-Euclidean four-dimensional space with neutral metric. Actually, we find first the Weierstrass representation in terms of isotropic parameters, and then the Weierstrass representation in terms of canonical parameters. I'm going to explain them now. So let M be a local parameterization of C of UV be a local parameterization of the minimal Lorentz surface of general type. And we assume that we have an isothermal parameterization, which means that the coefficients of the first fundamental form, EF and G, satisfy the relations. Is there anybody in the Zoom?
It's not.
Is it necessary?
It's not needed. It's not.
Definitely not in. Okay. So the first the equations of the first fundamental form satisfy the conditions E is equal to minus G and F is equal to 0. That's why we say that this is isothermal parameterization. As a consequence of Chen's theorem, which you saw at the very beginning, we can present any minimal Lorentz surface in terms of isothermal parameters in this form by two null curves in E for 2. Beta of U plus V plus theta of U minus V give a minimal Lorentz surface parameterized by isothermal parameters. And conversely, every minimal Lorentz surface can be parameterized locally this way. So
can we think as some kind of light cone variables? Light cone variables, light cone in physics or okay. Do they have some meaning?
the parameters U and V, I suppose they have this physical.
Because even in higher dimension, we have radius and time, and they are natural parameters on some light cone.
On some Wi-Fi.
If you are in, I assume you are in some.
Yes, actually they lie on the Wi-Fi cone.
Yeah.
This is not working now.
Click on slides, it will work. Now it will work.
Okay, so first we need some kind of Weierstrass type representation of the null curves. So we will consider a null curve beta lying in the four-dimensional space. It is a null curve, which means that this condition holds true. And we prove that each null curve beta can be parameterized locally in such a way that beta prime is expressed in this way, or beta prime is expressed in this way. This is the trivial case in which we have only one function f and a constant vector. Here epsilon 1, epsilon 2, epsilon 3 can be plus or minus 1. Or the non-trivial case in which the null curve is parameterized in this way. Actually, beta prime, the first derivative of the null curve, is parameterized in this way, which means that it is expressed in terms of three smooth functions, f, g, and h. This is some kind of Weierstrass representation for the null curves. And then using this parameterization of the null curves, we obtain this theorem, which is the Weierstrass representation in terms of isothermal parameters of the minimal Lorentz surfaces of general type. This is a result with my colleague Ognjan Kasavov, published in Mediterranean Journal of Mathematics. So the result states that up to change of the parameters, any minimal Lorentz surface of general type has locally this Weierstrass type representation in terms of isothermal parameters for some null curves beta and theta satisfying these conditions, which means that each minimal Lorentz surface of general type is represented in terms of 6 functions, f1, f2, g1, g2, h1, h2, satisfying these conditions. This is the first result in terms of isothermal parameters. But now if we introduce special parameterization, we can reduce the number of functions. So from now on, instead of beta and theta, I will use the notations alpha1 and alpha2 for the two null curves. So each minimal Lorentz surface corresponds to a pair of null curves, alpha1 and alpha2, and conversely, any pair of null curves generates a minimal Lorentz surface parameterized in isothermal parameters by this formula, alpha1 of u plus v plus alpha2 of u minus v. And now what is a natural parameter, which was mentioned by Todor? What is a natural parameter of a non-degenerate null curve? We say that the curve alpha is parameterized in terms of a natural parameter if we have this condition for the second derivative, because the curve is null. This natural parameter is sometimes called pseudo-arc length parameter because it plays the same role for the null curves as the role played by the arc length parameter for non-null curves. So this is the other notion, pseudo-arc length parameter. And in addition to the isothermal parameters UV from which we started at the beginning, we can consider the isotropic parameters T1, T2, which are connected with the isothermal parameters by these formulas, T1 and T2. And in terms of the isotropic parameters, M has the following parameterization given here. Again, a sum of two null curves, but parameterized by these isotropic parameters. So using this parameterization and using the Weierstrass representation given below, we can obtain the canonical Weierstrass representation in which we reduce the number of functions to 3. Here you see the definition of canonical isotropic parameters and canonical isothermal parameters. If we are given a minimal Lorentz surface of general type with isotropic parameters T1 and T2, they are called canonical if T1 and T2 are the natural parameters of the corresponding curve, alpha1 and alpha2. And if the surface is parameterized in terms of isothermal coordinates UV, these coordinates UV are called canonical. if the corresponding isotropical coordinates are canonical. The surface, which means that the null curves are parameterized in terms of the pseudo-Arfleck parametrization. And here I would like to note also that the canonical coordinates of a given minimal Lorentz surface are determined uniquely up to numeration, sign, or an additive constant, because if we are given two natural parameters T and S, they're connected by this relation. So the canonical parameters are determined up to numeration, sign, and a constant. And now here is the canonical Weierstrass representation I wanted to show you. If M is a minimal Lorentz surface of general type, parameterized by canonical isotropic coordinates, then it has the following canonical Weierstrass representation. The two null curves, alpha 1 and alpha 2, satisfy this condition. Where Gi and Hi are two pairs of smooth real functions, such that they satisfy these inequalities. And conversely, if we are given two pairs of smooth functions satisfying the inequalities, then there exists a minimal Lorentz surface of general type, parameterized by canonical isotropic coordinates and having this canonical Weierstrass type representation. Here I would like to mention that actually space-like and time-like surfaces are studied mainly in three-dimensional Lorentz space. There are different types of Weierstrass type formulas. For example, I mentioned a result of Dushan and Majid in Journal of Geometry and Physics, a result of Sinter and Onisi in Analytica Mathematica, Lira, Melon, Mercury results in mathematics, B. Shipman, P. Shipman, Packard in Journal of Geometry, and etc. And only two results which are important for four-dimensional space. A paper of Victor Paty in 2016 gave a Weierstrass representation of minimal Lorentz surfaces in E42. But in terms of spinors and Lorentz numbers. Also, these numbers are called paracomplex or split complex, double numbers, or hyperbolic numbers. Different notions are used. And another theorem, another paper of Dusan, Philo, and Simulov, I don't know exactly the pronunciation. In 2021, in which the complex Weierstrass representation for weakly conformal space-like surfaces in Minkowski for space is given, but it again involves homomorphic or anti-homomorphic functions. So all known Weierstrass type representations of minimal surfaces are in terms of homomorphic or anti-homomorphic functions. And what we see as our contribution is that we have the advantage, our approach has the advantage that the considered surfaces and all its invariants are expressed in terms of real valued functions, for real valued functions. And here you see how the Gauss curvature and the normal curvature are expressed in terms of the canonical parameters. K and kappa are expressed in terms of two pairs of functions, but all of them are real functions, real variable. And the theorem about these surfaces in terms of the two main invariants, the Gauss curvature K and the normal curvature kappa. As I mentioned, we can express them in terms of these real four real functions of one variable. This is a result in Journal of Mathematical Analysis and Applications. And also I would like to remark that actually two different quadruples of real functions can generate, according to the formulas given in the previous theorem, one of the same solution to the natural equations. So it's important to know how to recognize that these two quadruples generate one and the same solution. And here in this theorem 8, you see that if we are given two quadruples of real functions satisfying the conditions. They generate, according to the formulas, one and the same solution to the system of PDEs, if and only if they are related by linear fractional transformations of the following type. So up to linear fractional transformations of the following type, we can characterize the minimal surfaces in terms of four real functions. And we use this Weierstrass type canonical representation to construct examples of minimal surfaces, and which means we can find explicit examples of the theorem describing this class of surfaces. Actually, that was the idea, to find explicit solutions, find a way to express explicitly the solutions of this complicated system of two partial differential equations, which is called the natural PDE system for minimal Lorentz surfaces. And here you see one example. If we take G1, G2, H1 and H2 to be these functions defined, then we consider the null curves alpha1 and alpha2, whose derivatives are given by these formulas from the representation of the null curves. Then up to constant vectors, we can find the null curves alpha1, which is function of t, alpha2 is function of s. And then applying the theorem for the canonical Weierstrass representation, we obtain a surface C of UV given by these four coordinate functions. These are the first, second, third, and fourth coordinate function of the surface. And this is a minimal surface, Lorentz surface in E42. In this example, we need to put this condition on the parameter V so that we obtain a smooth surface. So what is more important from here, that if we calculate the Gauss curvature K and the curvature of the normal connection kappa, they are expressed by these functions. These two functions give a solution to the system of natural PDEs, which was given before. And another example, here you see, we take G1, H1, which are functions of T in the following way to be equal to T, G2 and H2 in the following way. And then we find the corresponding null curves alpha1 and alpha2 and obtain the parametrization of the surface. You see the parametrization of the surface here. And calculating the Gauss curvature and the normal curvature, which are expressed in this complicated way, we obtain a solution to the system of natural PDEs. That was actually the idea, to find a common explicit formula for the solutions of this system. And the solutions come from this canonical Weierstrass type representation formula. Here you see some references which were used. Actually, the talking based on this paper with Yana Alexieva for geometry and physics, and the paper with Kasabov and Milusheva in the Mediterranean Journal of Mathematics, and also some other papers on which we use to obtain our results. So thank you for your attention.
I have a question, but I will ask it in Bulgarian because we have to formulate it in English.
Okay.
Колкото разбрах, има няколко фрази и намираме
Двумерно многообразие, да, в четиримерно псевдоевклидово пространство.
да, и ние намираме параметризация на всяка карта. В смисъл, така че многообразието да се изразява по определен начин. Мисълта ми е, къде се прилага този начин на изразяване на този тип.
Значи идеята е тук да се намерят всяка двумерна повърхнина в четиримерно пространство. Основната теорема, фундаменталната теорема е, че може да се зададе с помощта на 8 функции. Използвате уравнението на Гаус и Кодаци. Обаче това са съвсем произволни 8 функции, удовлетворяващи 8 уравнения. Това е общата теорема, фундаментална. И специално за минималните повърхнини има още няколко класа повърхнини, за които може да се редуцира броя на функциите, а за минималните повърхнини, ако се въведат специални параметри, тогава функциите се редуцират до 2. Но теоремата все пак е доста сложна. Това е теорема с частни диференциални уравнения, 2 променливи от втори ред, видяхте как изглежда с оператора на Лаплас вътре. На такава система много трудно се търсят решения. Видяхте решенията, които тук бяха дадени като примери. Ето тези две функции не са много простички като изрази, а това е най-доброто, което може да се постигне за изразяване на решенията, защото са спрямо най-хубавите параметри. Това е идеята на естествен параметър на крива. Естествен, най-хубавия. Една крива е параметризирана спрямо естествен параметър, ако е подбран по специален начин, нали, това, който е дължината на дъгата. Тук в двумерни повърхнини е много сложно да се дефинира естествен параметър и само за някои класове може да се дефинира. И това е този каноничен параметър. I'm sorry for speaking in Bulgarian. This is a young colleague, PhD student now.
I want to ask the same question, but in English instead. So if you consider the modular space of these minimal surfaces, that's naturally an orbifold. What kind of manifold is it? It's a real manifold with boundary. Like what do we know a priori before we actually tackle the problem? The modular space of this minimal surfaces. What is it naturally? Is it a real manifold with boundary? It's orbifold? What is it?
No, we don't consider the boundary because we consider only the local theory.
I see.
This is a manifold, two-dimensional manifold immersed in a four-dimensional space. And we study the local theory of this manifold, two-dimensional. This is two-dimensional subspace with some charts on it.
I don't mean the actual minimal surfaces, but the modular space of minimal surfaces. So that's the two-dimensional object, or the question was, you parameterize these surfaces in a certain way, so that effectively proves something about the modular space of these surfaces. What is it as an object? Is it an orbifold, or it's just a real manifold? Or it's contractible? It's okay.
Just a manifold.
I see.
Very interesting. I think that it should have certainly a lot of application in physics. And I wonder, have you studied the connection with Penrose twistor theory? Because this is a framework which is in conformal theory, and there are many indications that have some elaborated conformal generalizations. So things that came to mind. Twisters are spinors with conformal symmetry.
This is more appropriate, what you ask your question is more appropriate in the study of the so-called marginally trapped surfaces, which is a generalization of the minimal surfaces, and they are actually discovered and introduced the marginally trapped surfaces by Roger Penrose. And in the study of these marginally trapped surfaces, this can be discussed, your question. These marginally trapped surfaces have a very definite physical notion. These are connected with the black holes. Yes, the marginally trapped surface. From mathematical point of view, marginally trapped surfaces are surfaces with non-zero mean curvature vector, not like minimal surfaces, they are with zero. Non-zero mean curvature vector, but like curvature vector, isotropic. And these marginally trapped surfaces describe the horizon, because this is the boundary between the space-wide and the time-wide case, the white case.
This can have some limiting case of some black holes your surfaces,
No,
No.
no.
they're.
But your question is relevant to the study of marginally trapped surfaces. The notion of marginally trapped surfaces actually comes from Minkowski space because it's connected with the black holes. But here in a four-dimensional pseudo-Euclidean space, there is a similar notion. This is quasi-minimal surfaces. But quasi-minimal surfaces are never minimal.
And I have one more question, if you allow me. You have this term super conformal, but is this related to some Grassmann variables? Because super conformal in physics would mean generalization of conformal when you put some extra Grassmann variables, or it's just some constants of.
I cannot answer this
Yeah.
question because I don't know actually where the notion comes, because the geometric interpretation was explained. The geometric object ellipse of normal curvature is a circle. This is the super conformal case. I don't know where the notion comes from.
Okay. Thank you. Constantly.
Any other questions? No, but let's. We